Oh, Dragon Ball, what more need be said about you? You served to be our nostalgic childhoods, raised us up to see how great a grand adventure could be on panel and in animation, and turned us into cranky adults with grudges against inaccurate English dubs. Oh, and you have some pretty great fights and whatnot. That's nice too. But for the longest time, the series was kinda gone. Oh, sure, we got regular video games, but original content was basically dead. Well, except for that. Okay, so GT really isn't unwatchable garbage. Sometimes. Once in a while. Kinda. But it was lacking Akira Toriyama's charm in a lot of spots. So for a long time, we really didn't have the stuff that made Dragon Ball so memorable. There was some Toriyama-written stuff here and there, but Dragon Ball Online was never finished and went under, leaving its plot unfulfilled. And sadly, a lot of people never even knew Yo! Son Goku and Friends Return existed, which is sad as it's a lot of fun for such a short, goofy viewing. Dragon Ball was basically gone as we knew it. And then there were rumors of a new Dragon Ball Z movie. And not just a Dragon Ball Z movie, a Dragon Ball Z movie written by Akira Toriyama himself. Needless to say, it had Dragon Ball fans drooling at the prospect, myself included. Then in 2013 in Japan, and about a year and a half later in the US, Toei released the much-anticipated Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. Was this the return to form Dragon Ball fans had been waiting so long for? Or yet another mediocre entry in a once-beloved franchise? The movie begins with a quick recount briefly telling the events of the original story, done with some new artwork. Well, everyone knows the story by now. This is a nice addition, and it frankly feels more satisfying than the laziness that left a lot of us cold with Dragon Ball Kai. They also correctly depicted Goku in his normal form when using the father-son Kamehameha as he was in the manga at the end of the Cell arc, which is a nice touch. The plot finally begins with the Kaioshin sensing something in the distance. The god of destruction is awakening after a long slumber, and it implies that the days of peace hard won by Goku and the gang are now over. Kibito Shin contacts Kaio about it, who has also sensed it, with an unfortunate consequence of Goku being present and overhearing it. Kaio explains to Goku about the concept of the god of destruction, and unsurprisingly, Goku ignores all of it and gets excited over the prospect of a new powerful opponent. Because he's an idiot. The movie then jumps to a strange space island with a castle built inside of a tree where we see Miley Cyrus. A strange blue man attempting to wake up the god of destruction after his alarm bomb goes off. Because alarm clocks are for pussies. The blue attendant man is actually an angel named Whis, though it wasn't explained anywhere in the movie that he's an angel, and manages to wake Beerus following a threat of karaoke of all things. Beerus, as it stands, wasn't very fond of the Saiyajin and allowed Frieza to exterminate them, remembering such a sequence of events from before his slumber. He then considers killing Frieza as well, finding the evil Emperor to be a nuisance. Whis, however, informs Beerus that Frieza was already defeated by a Saiyajin named, you guessed it, Son Goku. The movie then shows us a brief flashback to Goku going Super Saiyajin for the first time and pummeling the crap out of Frieza. As here, I'm going to touch on something fairly important to an animated film. The animation. While I feel the 2008 special is more visually appealing, and the artwork is occasionally off, one thing I absolutely can't complain about is the superb animation. This movie has really great looking animation, and makes it a pleasure to watch. The art also very rarely ever dips into the pseudo-remake of this movie in Dragon Ball Super's animation. Thank goodness. The coloring in this movie is also quite appealing. While it doesn't look quite as eye-popping as the color version of the manga, it looks much better than the considerably more subdued TV series did, and better than the strange coloring Kai tends to offer. Back to the story. Beerus mentions having had a prophetic dream years prior, and that he'd awaken at this time to do battle with a deity of great might. After a quick trip to a strange being called the Oracle Fish, Beerus remembers the being known as the Super Saiyajin God. Whis reveals the majority of remaining Saiyajin have found a home on Earth, but Beerus decides to go after Goku, remembering that he was the man who defeated Frieza. The scene jumps to Earth, where Bulma is celebrating her birthday, somewhat irked at Goku not being present at the party, being that he instead chose to train at Kaio's place. This is played pretty much entirely for laughs. While many people find the comedic element to be a detraction from the movie, expecting more fighting, I find that to be debatable. The movie may carry the title of Dragon Ball Z, but Z wasn't always about the fighting. Moreover, with Toriyama being directly involved, one must remember the original manga was released simply as Dragon Ball in Japan, without a Z, running for 42 volumes in the manga. Comedy was always a pretty big element of the original series, and outside of the Cell arc, was quite present in much of Z. And this movie delivers. The plot makes its way back to Goku, who begins to freak out in terror. When Kaio becomes worried, Goku reveals that he just now remembered today was Bulma's birthday, and Kaio reacts accordingly. Kaio then senses Beerus approaching, leaving Goku confused. As it stands, mortals can't sense Divine Ki, and he then tells Goku to go hide. Goku, feeling dejected, having wanted to fight Beerus, agrees, but pouts the whole way. This is meaningless, of course, as Beerus is already aware of Goku's presence, and tells him to reveal himself. Goku does what he always does and trips over himself in excitement, casually introducing himself to Beerus before being smacked upside the head by Kaio, who tells him to be on his best behavior. This leads to Goku trying very hard to be polite, and using a lot of Desu. Beerus asks if Goku knows of the Super Saiyajin God, but he knows nothing of any sort of god, only the standard Super Saiyajin. Goku then requests a match from Beerus. Amused, he agrees. Goku transforms into each of the Super Saiyajin stages, which Beerus admits is quite a surprise. Goku says if it's too much for him to handle, he can revert back to the second stage. But Beerus waves it off. Goku, feeling insulted and thinking Beerus is looking down on him, proceeds to attack. Despite its short length, this fight is exceptional. Goku is unable to land even a single blow on Beerus despite going absolutely all out. Beerus easily dodges and counters every one of Goku's attacks, and then beats him in just a few strikes without ever exerting any sort of effort. Still amused, Beerus then leaves with Whis for Earth, while Kaio checks to see if Goku is even still alive. Realizing that the Earth is now in danger, Kaio contacts Vegeta, hearing that the regularly grumpy Vegeta is the one most likely to anger Beerus. Goku awakens and expresses glee, even in his ruined state, at the sheer scale of Beerus' might. Realizing that not even a fusion into Vegito could touch Beerus, Goku wonders if this Super Saiyajin God concept is something that he can reach with just training. Bubbles then gives Goku a Senzu, restoring Goku back to peak strength. Meanwhile, an irritable Vegeta makes his way to Bulma's party, concerned that the arrival of the God of Destruction could lead to a disaster. For some reason, Vegeta is genuinely terrified, but can't figure out why, and winds up lashing out at his wife. After being mocked by an unseen voice, Vegeta begins to look around in a frenzy before finding Beerus waiting at the pool. Seeing him triggers a flashback where the Saiyajin Prince recalls his father on his knees before Beerus. I also have to have some appreciation towards the art design, having a young Vegeta depicted with the correct hairstyle, which was also used in the Dragon Ball Minus manga. Sadly, this correction wouldn't hold, and he'd be returned to his TV special design during the retread in Dragon Ball Super. But alas, that story is for another day. Beerus proceeds to ask him about the Super Saiyajin God, but this is unknown to Vegeta as well. Bulma, annoyed by her husband's outburst, chases after him and finds him talking with Beerus and Whis, who act like they're old friends of Vegeta's. Bulma invites the two to join the party, which concerns the Saiyajin Prince unsurprisingly, but it seems like there's no reason to be concerned, as Beerus seems to be enjoying himself at the party. Yamcha is really happy about it for some reason, and Goten just seems a little weirded out. I don't know why this amuses me so much.
Shut up.
Also, Namekian karaoke. Piccolo can't carry a tune, I guess. While Beerus breakdances, the Pilaf gang breaks into the Capsule Corporation building, chasing after the Dragon Balls, which are one of the prizes of the bingo tournament at the party. As it turns out, the trio accidentally got turned into kids by way of a bad wish, due to Pilaf blurting out that he wished they were younger, having aged over the years. Again, this plays up the comedy and really makes the movie feel like a love letter to Dragon Ball in general, and not just Z. The Goofy trio eventually are caught poking around by Trunks, who thinks Pilaf is some kind of monkey. He brings Goten over, and his appearance immediately triggers the gang, his pointy hairdo and blank expression reminding them of another certain pointy-haired blank expression boy who once turned into a raging beast in front of them. The Pilaf gang runs away, with Mai running back and returning a gem she stole, which causes Trunks to get a crush on her. When Goten asks who she is, Trunks blurts out that she's his girlfriend. As it turns out, Mai was doing that just as a distraction to steal a Dragon Ball, and wants to ransom it back to them for 100 million zenny, only to realize the gem she had previously snagged was worth 10 billion zenny. Bulma and Trunks spot the group, leading Trunks to ask them to cover for him, having accidentally bragged that she was his girlfriend to his mom. At this point, the three recognize Bulma despite having aged, but agree to go to the party while pretending to be friends with Trunks. Also, the inevitable joke about how old Mai is comes up. The plot temporarily cuts back to Goku, who is still training on Kaio's planet, coming to the realization that no matter the effort he puts behind it, it won't result in him catching Beerus anytime soon. Frustrated, he begins to contemplate how to find a way to become the Super Saiyajin God. Back at the party, Bulma begins to pull out the bingo prizes, including the Dragon Balls. Everyone realizes one of them is missing, and fearing they'll be caught, the Pilaf gang attempt to slip out, causing the stolen ball to fall out of Mai's pocket. They then try to take Trunks hostage and ransom him off. Thinking it's just a joke, everyone laughs at them. Gohan, who's drunk off of his ass, dons his Saiyaman getup and tells Mai to shoot him, thinking it's just a toy. She shoots him in the face and he deflects the bullets with ease, using only a single finger. One of the bullets, however, hits Videl in the leg. Dende is nearby and heals her, but senses she's carrying something extra. She then asks him to keep quiet about it, as it's a secret. Unfortunately, one of the other bullets hit Beerus, who becomes angered and prepares to destroy the planet. But Vegeta manages to interrupt him with a goofy song and dance. Didn't even know he could make that kind of face. While still annoyed, Beerus does seem to have calmed down, being so disturbed by Vegeta's display. While the others play bingo, Vegeta attempts to nurse his wounded pride. Whis speaks to Beerus of pudding, which is all gone, except for what's being eaten by Boo. Boo refuses to share, and a fight breaks out between them. Yes, over pudding. The God of Destruction knocks Boo around like he's nothing, and Goku's friends jump in to stop the fighting, but are easily defeated. As Beerus begins to torture Boo out of anger, Gohan tells Krillin to get the others out of the way, and steps in, but serves to be just as useless in a fight against Beerus as everyone else. Vegeta, realizing there's no other option except to try, attempts to fight Beerus, with pretty much the anticipated result. Vegeta acknowledges that there's no way he can win, and though it pains him to do so, accepts that he and everyone else is about to die. Until Bulma begins screaming at Beerus for ruining her birthday. She slaps Beerus and receives a slap in kind, which Vegeta does not take well. Unleashing his full fury all at once, Vegeta begins to slowly push back against Beerus, surpassing Goku at long last, even if temporarily. Unfortunately, even having caught Beerus off guard and pummeled him quite thoroughly in his intense state of rage, it's all for naught, as Beerus is barely even scuffed. Disappointing that such a surprising display of power still isn't the Super Saiyajin God, Beerus knocks out a resistant Vegeta. After an embarrassing harebrained scheme courtesy of Yamcha and Oolong fails, Goku at long last arrives on Earth in classic style to prevent Beerus from destroying the Earth. Though Goku hasn't yet found the Super Saiyajin God, he entreats Beerus not to destroy the planet. Beerus mocks him, asking if he's going to attempt to fight him again. Goku, recognizing he can't possibly win, comes to a realization. Why not use the Dragon Balls and get a wish of knowledge on the Super Saiyajin God from the dragon? Goku asks him if he can bring the Super Saiyajin God to Earth, but the dragon says such a thing no longer exists. Upon mentioning that Beerus wanted to fight such a being, Shenlong craps his non-existent pants and tells Goku and Beerus the history of the Super Saiyajin God. And in time of great turmoil, a few righteous-hearted Saiyajin performed a ritual to turn one of their own into a savior of immense power. Though he far outclassed the evil Saiyajin that were corrupting their world, the power was quite ephemeral, and upon reverting to his weakened state, was slaughtered. Planet Vegeta once again fell into a world of savages. Shenlong disperses, then the Saiyajin try to go forth and call the god through the ritual. They seemingly complete the ritual, but quickly realize that Goku is not divine and merely has been granted considerable ki from the other Saiyajin. Whis mentions that the ritual called for 5 pure-hearted Saiyajin to instill light within another, meaning they're actually one short. Bulma makes a reference to Vegeta's younger brother from the 2008 special, but Vegeta doesn't know where his brother is or how to contact him. Beerus, now disappointed and bored once again, prepares to destroy the planet until Videl intervenes, mentioning there is another. Well, sort of. There's one to be with Saiyajin blood. For those who haven't yet caught on, Dende cuts in and mentions that Videl is pregnant with Gohan's child. I'm going to go off track for just a moment. First, I want to praise this bit, as while it's not majorly built up, the mention Dende makes earlier in the movie does make this less of a cheap ass pull. Unlike Dragon Ball Super, which cheapens it by never mentioning it. That's mostly a personal gripe, but I wanted to state it. The second thing is, this scene feels exceptionally hopeful and heartwarming, which helps to keep the spirit of Toriyama's previous works intact. It's legitimately great and a beautiful moment. It goes to show that even though Dragon Ball primarily centered around fighting, that wasn't all it was. Once more, they attempt to call forth the Super Saiyajin God, except this time, a blue light begins to emanate by each of the Saiyajin. Goku rises into the air, engulfed by the light. As it disperses, he now has a reddish tint to his eyes and hair, and his body lost some of his muscle tone. Realizing he can now sense Beerus' divinity, Goku confirms that he is now a Super Saiyajin God. And at long last, we get to the titular Battle of Gods, and man oh man does it deliver. However, I do have to note that while I didn't first notice this, there's an occasional mix between the standard 2D animation and some 3D models fighting. And that's not counting the backgrounds. Now, while I generally don't like 3D models in place of 2D animation, it actually doesn't look terrible here, and it's hard to notice. Which is odd considering how rife it is in the next movie, and a later scene in this film. And it's easy to notice how bad that looks. But this particular part, it looks smooth for the most part, and the fight is quite entertaining. Beerus notices that Goku seems unimpressed by his own power after the brief clash. He then remarks that while he's happy to have the chance to fight Beerus again, he's frustrated that it's not by his own effort. Beerus calls him a battle junkie, and their fight continues. Again, the fight here is absolutely superb looking, with amazing choreography and cinematography, if those are the right words. While the two gods continue their battle, Vegeta feels conflicted, as he's jealous of Goku taking the initiative and becoming a Super Saiyajin God, but admits he's glad he's not on the receiving end. Unfortunately, it's here where that aforementioned really ugly CGI appears, and it's noticeable. It's not a long sequence, but it's so ugly looking, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. If it weren't for everything else up to this point being so enjoyable, this could almost ruin the entire fight. Once we're past that bit of ugliness, the fight continues and goes right back to being awesome. Beerus mocks Goku for being so hung up on his tattered pride, to which he replies that Vegeta is even more proud than he is. The God of Destruction points out that Vegeta threw away his pride to keep him from blowing up the planet, and Goku replies that he respects Vegeta for doing such a thing. Beerus then questions Goku on this, mentioning that Goku too threw away his own pride, just for the chance at another fight. Pudding Cat then expresses his own frustration that he hasn't even been putting effort into the fight, and Goku reveals that he's been fighting at about 80% of his full power. Beerus gets serious and asks if Goku can keep up with his speed, leading to another great clash. However, Goku's God mode runs out, and he returns to his neutral state. Without noticing, he continues to put up a fight, perhaps even more so than he's been giving up to this point. The God of Destruction begins destroying the area around them, once more looking down on Goku for expressing his dissatisfaction that Beerus is now using blasts against him. I should really bring up the dub here. You'll notice I haven't talked much about the voice acting, Japanese or English. Truth be told, there's not much point in bringing up the Japanese voice acting, as it's solid as always. In fact, I swear Masako Nozawa and Ryo Horikawa have been better here than ever before. And I don't want to spend the entire time griping about Funimation's voice actors, which, if you're not aware of yet, I'm not a fan of for the most part. But to be entirely fair to the voice actors in the Funidub, the dubbing in this isn't bad, particularly Beerus and Whis, who have well-cast actors and good performances. However, this is an issue with the Funimation script, and it ruins much of Goku's personality during this moment. It's ultimately a bit of a nitpick, but I feel it changes a lot of the meaning in Goku's fight here. Now granted, maybe I'm looking way too deep into this from the wrong angle, and putting something there that's not actually there, so feel free to take this with a grain of salt. In the English dub, at this point, Goku screams out to Beerus, "I won't let you destroy my world." Well, it's not completely wrong for Goku to say this, especially with the emphasis on my world. This line doesn't feel quite right. It feels like a throwback to the days of Funimation trying to superhero Goku up. This is in contrast to the Japanese line of, "Stop enjoying destroying things." Now, maybe I'm completely misconstruing this line, but I swear this stems from Goku not trying to be a defender of Earth, but rather at his frustration of not being taken seriously. But enough of this mini tirade, back to the movie. This leads to undoubtedly the best sequence of the film, and quite possibly one of the best Dragon Ball fights of all time. Goku subconsciously releases all of his fury and turns into a Super Saiyan form, beginning to fight Beerus with pure effort at last. What ensues is a dizzyingly fast-paced, mind-bending roar of a battle, and it's all set to the tune of Flow's Hero, Song of Hope, which works really well with the stellar animation. You'll also note that I haven't used any music from the movie in this review. Well, truth be told, that's mostly because I'm concerned I'll get slapped with a copyright strike or something, so I'm keeping it out of the review. But I'd like to say that the soundtrack for this film is mostly pleasing. While much of the recent Dragon Ball content has had some mediocre or insufferable music, looking at you, Dragon Ball Kai, the final chapters, Battle of Gods is mostly well chosen, save for a few tracks, albeit with only a few standouts. Goku once more expresses his annoyance at Beerus using Ki Blast against him, and unleashes a Kamehameha of his own in kind. Unfortunately, Beerus is unscathed and retorts with his own attack. He then mentions to Goku that his God mode ran out quite some time ago, and Goku has only now realized it. He theorizes that Goku must have somehow absorbed the divine ki into himself, so when it ran out, his power mostly remained. He doesn't particularly care and is more concerned about the gap in their power, and whether or not he can push Beerus' blast back. However, the blast is too much and pushes Goku beyond his limits, until he gets the typical anime, "We believe in you" moment, as his friends and family call out to him, and proceeds to transform back into God mode, and nullifies the attack entirely. Neither Beerus nor Goku quite know what he did, and it does feel a little bit like a Deus Ex Machina moment. Granted, he was a god, so Deus Ex Machina isn't entirely out of place, I guess? Beerus finally gets Goku to admit defeat, and praises him for being the second strongest opponent he's ever faced. As it turns out, Whis isn't just Beerus' attendant, he's also Beerus' mentor, and even stronger. He then mentions that he's not even the only god of destruction, only the 7th of 12 spread across an equal number of universes, asking if Goku ever considered that there were even stronger opponents out there. Everyone returns back to the ground, and Beerus decides to follow through with the destruction of the Earth, blasting a small nearby cliff. A rather amusing play on words, really. Whis asks if Goku wants to become the next god of destruction when Beerus passes. Goku, unsurprisingly, turns it down. What is it with Divines wanting him to take their place anyway? Beerus then apologizes for acting the way he did at the party, and Bulma then tells him that he should be apologizing for slapping her, which he does, and then asks her to invite him to the next party. She agrees on the condition that he behave next time. Beerus agrees, but demands that he get pudding next time, and then claims if he doesn't like it, he'll destroy the planet. For realsies. As Beerus and Whis leave the planet, Elder Kaioshin expresses that he's impressed how Goku and his friends, and perhaps even the planet itself, seem to always manage to pull through, no matter the danger, turning enemies into allies. Back on Earth, Goku proceeds to poke fun at Vegeta for the Mabuma incident. Vegeta goes on a frustrated tirade, but makes Goku acknowledge that he went beyond Goku's Super Saiyan 3 levels. He laughs it off and says that next time they face an impossible foe, just let Bulma get slapped by him. Piccolo mentions Goku wasn't around for that and realizes Goku has been watching the whole time. Vegeta tells Bulma to slap Goku a few times as the credits begin to roll, to a pretty poor rendition of Cha-La Head Cha-La performed by Flo, if I'm being honest. The credits themselves are built upon famous parts from the original manga, however, and are quite good in their own right, even if I'm not too pleased by the music choice. So, the question is Battle of Gods everything that it's hyped up to be by the fans? I say with utmost certainty and confidence that yes, it's everything that makes Dragon Ball great, while also simultaneously sidestepping its own tropes. It's not simply Goku gets his ass beat, recovers, arrives when convenient to turn the tide, gets beat up again, gets a new power-up, and wins against a super evil bad guy. Rather, Beerus isn't all that evil, being more of a spoiled brat in personality, albeit with a basically good nature. And Goku gets a completely worthless new form, gets his typical I can't lose moment, and proceeds to lose anyway. It's somehow both familiar and yet fresh. The excellent animation, quality visuals, mostly decent soundtrack, and that pure Toriyama feeling throughout the film all feel absolutely on point. While non-fans might be a little lost in the new things, it's still simple enough to enjoy. After all, it's not high art, it's Dragon Ball, our beloved dumbass shonen franchise. Simply put, it's a joy. It's not perfect by any means, and it has a few head-scratchers and ass-pulls, but damn it, it's just so much pure fun. It feels like a return to form in a lot of ways, and really the biggest gripe I have about the film, besides the glaring lack of Shunsuke Kikuchi and Hironobu Kageyama on the soundtrack, is that I think the 2008 special had a slightly better art style. But you know what? That's okay. It's Dragon Ball. Pure and simple, goofy and fun, tense and explosive. If you haven't checked out any of the newer stuff starting with this film, do yourself a favor and start here. This movie is absolutely recommended. Agree or disagree? Leave a comment and let me know. Enjoyed the video? Leave a like. Want something more? You can check out my previous review on Devil May Cry 2, or maybe take a glance at my playthrough of Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit, or maybe the 2 videos I did on Xenoverse with my buddy Duck over at Cyan Hub. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll come back for more.